We welcome all of you on the behalf of Indian National Congress from South Korea on the Kisan Adhikar Divas. And this is nationwide protest against the recently implemented black farm laws by the BJP-led government. We have also with Professor Nandesh Kumar Pandey from State Coordination Bihar Congress, and he is from West Champaran. And he is a philosopher, scholar, social worker, and a politician. And you all know the significance of Champaran in different ways. It was year 1917 when Gandhi started the independence movement from that place. And in the 1915, when Gandhi came back from South Africa, they see how the Indians, peasants, farmers were in deep trouble under the British regime. So Gandhi went to that land and tried to understand what could be done to improve the situation of the Indian farmers and particularly the peasants there. So uh, we will start this event, and we will also focusing today is also a special day because it's Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel birth anniversary and Mrs. Indira Gandhi death anniversary. We pay tribute to her. And on the third important occasion of this day is that the Indian National Congress is organizing a protest against the black farm laws, not only across the country, but in fact across the globe through their overseas Congress chapters. So before I go in detail, I would like to request Professor Nandesh Kumar Pandey, who is from the land of Champaran, and he would give us a brief historical perspective of the farmers' condition in Champaran. So मैं प्रोफेसर नंदेश कुमार पांडे जी का इस्तकबाल करता हूं इस प्रोग्राम में, और वो हमें बिहार के किसानों के बारे में बताएंगे कि किसान के क्या हालात हैं, किन दौर से गुजर रहे हैं. Also, if you can recall, the in 1960s, late 60s, we started Green Revolution. We were witnessing famine in West Bengal and different parts of the country. The economic system was not good just after the independence because British had already looted everything. So when India started revolutionize its agriculture sector, one of the solutions that we had to start the agriculture with the Green Revolution, and it took some time. By the end of 60s, Mrs. Indira Gandhi made her contribution in the Green Revolutions. So whenever there is a technology or innovation, it has pros and cons. And from the Green Revolution, the best part was that India became self-sufficient in terms of production of the grains. Till then, that time, India was dependent on the import of the grains, and it was importing from different parts of the globe. So in 70s and after 70s, from Mrs. Indira Gandhi to her son, and the Green Revolution took place in India, and the productivity. So new technology was high yielding crops, and the um, the tractors and irrigation, all system improved over the years, and it led to the increase the production level of the agriculture. So India becomes self-sufficient in the next 10-15 years. And Punjab farmers' income grew by 70%, and alone, Punjab produced more than 75% of the India's total grains during those years. Later, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and other northern states also started with the Green Revolution, and it was a great success. It solved the issues like the famine, and the country was self-sustained in terms of the agriculture. But since this is the pros part, but there's also something negative aspects associated with the Green Revolution. In Green Revolution, you use very high level of the fertilizers like the phosphorus and different chemicals, and eventually it makes the land um, non-productive over the years. So if you see in the Congress regime, they have first they solved the real ground problem. The farmers' income grew, the country's requirement in terms of the agriculture fulfilled, and so now it's coming to the next version. The world is changing, technology is adopted by across the globe. So now the latest term that is used in the advanced version of agriculture is a smart farming. That is called the precision farming, in which there is a almost 10 to 15% requirement of water, soil, fertility in comparison to the traditional agriculture sector. One of the biggest issues that the Indian farmers are facing in today's time, the land, most of the farmers is having less than 1.1 hectares. which means that the farmland is small, and in some states the government has acquired all the farmers' land at one place. For example, in Bihar, somebody has 5 katta here and 10 katta there, so it's very difficult for the for the big machineries like the tractors or the sensors or the robotic things to do with the smart technology. So smart farming is the need of an hour. For example, Korea has done extremely well in the smart farming, and it has become a leader. And India can learn a lot of things from South Korea. Um, for example, the United Arab Emirates is doing extremely well in smart farming because of the desert background. They don't have a very fertilized land, and most of the Korean company, even including the KT, is playing an important role, assisting them, giving them consultancy how they can improve the farming in UAE. So UAE, which was earlier completely dependent on the import, now they have quite good production of the fresh leaves, green vegetables, and they are going into the more, the expensive crops. For example, the salads products and all the stuff. So they can be self-reliant on their own production. So what India is missing in this one? Uh, this is the government where they speak louder than on what they does on the ground level. They haven't made any policies for the smart farming. Any concrete policy India lacks, number one. Uh, though there is, for the traditional farming, there is some discounts or some schemes for the farmers that if they buy tractors or some other uh, agricultural equipment, then the government gets some subsidy. Recently, the condition of the Bangladeshi farmer is much better than India. The government of Bangladesh Ministry of Agriculture has announced that in the next 5 years, any farmers purchase any agricultural equipment from any part of the world. Of course, they have some limitation that the budget shouldn't exceed that much. They will give the 50% subsidy, which means if a Bangladeshi farmer purchase a tractor of 5 lakh or 7 lakh rupees, they will have to pay only 3.5 lakh, and the rest will be paid by the government. So this creates a sense of a trust among the government and the farmers. When you take the farmers in your confidence, they work really hard, and this is how the nation prospers. So first, the government of India lacks in the policies. There is no concrete policy related to smart farming. A smart farming is the future, whether you adopt it today or you don't adopt it. If you don't adopt it today, tomorrow you will regret. Tomorrow you will be a player who will be coming very late, you will join the party very late, and we will be suffering because the world would be in a position to produce the same crop at a cheaper price. And also, interestingly, the world is moving toward organic food products. Indian farmers are efficient, competitive, and extremely hardworking. And India's overall, for example, if you go in the southern part of India, they have more organic. They have more interest in the organic products because they understand that how chemicals could be dangerous for the human's health and human consumption purpose. So northern India, since one of the unfortunate part about our farmers are they are digitally not very literate. So you need to create a sense of awareness among them. So if I talk from the Bihar perspective, uh, in the last 15 years, during the tenure of JDU, it hasn't been done enough to ensure that we give the technology to the farmer, we give the training. So all those things are missing at the moment. So one thing is the technology, second is the digital literacy, third is we need to do something to make sure that the farmland grows. So for example, if somebody has 1 acre 1 hectare, and the farmer has four children, and then it will be divided into further into 0.25 hectare. The land is becoming smaller and smaller. So it will be very difficult from the technological perspective to get the benefit from that. So to hear about all those things, I would like to invite Professor Nandesh Kumar Pandey, जो कि आप बिहार स्टेट कोऑर्डिनेटर बिहार कांग्रेस के को लीड करते हैं, और आप वेस्ट चंपारण की अपनी तारीख है हिंदुस्तान के इतिहास में। जब भी कोई आंदोलन का आगाज होता है तो लोग उस दौर को याद करते हैं जब महात्मा गांधी जो है 1915 में साउथ अफ्रीका से आए, तो उनको लगा कि सबसे बेहतरीन हिंदुस्तान की सरजमी इस आजादी की इनकलाब को जिंदा करने के लिए वो चंपारण की जमीन है। चंपारण की एक लंबी तारीख रही है कि वहां के लोग हमेशा हर दौर में क्रांतिकारी रहे हैं। वो लोग हक को बोलना और झूठ को ठुकराना जानते हैं, और प्रोफेसर नंदेश कुमार पांडे बहुत जमीन से जुड़े हुए इंसान हैं, किसानों से जुड़े हुए हैं, ये खेती को भी समझते हैं, किसानों को भी समझते हैं, उनके हमेशा दर्द और खुशी में शामिल रहे हैं। और मैं इसलिए प्रोफेसर नंदेश कुमार पांडे जी को मैं कहूंगा कि आप इस पे थोड़ी सी रोशनी डालें कि क्या हालात है किसानों में, मौजूदा हुकूमत ने उनके लिए क्या किया है और कैसे हालात बदले जा सकते हैं। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। Can you unmute, sir? Yeah, please. आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही।
हेलो, धन्यवाद तुफैल भाई। साथ ही मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहूंगा अपने छोटे भाई की तरह हमारे किशले, जो आज हमको इंडियन ओवरसीज कांग्रेस में बोलने का मौका दिया एग्रीकल्चर के ऊपर। सबसे बड़ी बात है आज 31 अक्टूबर है। हम जानते हैं कि इसी दिन श्रीमती इंदिरा गांधी का शहादत हुआ था आज के दिन, जो हम लोग बलिदान दिवस के रूप में भी मनाते हैं। और जहां तक कृषि से संबंध की बात है तो सर्वप्रथम 1960 के दशक में इंदिरा गांधी जी ने ही हरित क्रांति, जो ग्रीन रिवॉल्यूशन का आगाज किया था, आज उसी के बदौलत हम लोग सारे किसान आत्मनिर्भर हो पाए। भारत आज अन्न उपजाने में आज जो आत्मनिर्भर है वो श्रीमती इंदिरा गांधी जी का ही देन है, जो हरित क्रांति का परिणाम है। लेकिन उसके बाद किसानों की समस्या पर किसी भी सरकार का उस तरह का ध्यान नहीं रहा। किसानों की समस्या दिन पर दिन बदतर है। अभी एग्रीकल्चर बिल जो लाए हैं, जिसको हम लोग ब्लैक बिल के तौर पर इसको मना रहे हैं और पूरे देश और विदेश में इसका विरोध कर रहे हैं। पिछली बार जब उनकी सरकार आई तो उन्होंने कहा था कि किसानों के आय को हमको दुगुना करना है, लेकिन किसानों की आय को कैसे दुगुना करना है इसका कोई उनके पास कोई पॉलिसी नहीं है। एग्रीकल्चर ठोस पॉलिसी इस देश में उन्होंने नहीं दे पाए। हम लोग चंपारण के रहने वाले हैं और आपने सही कहा कि कोई किसी भी आंदोलन का सूत्रपात चंपारण से होता है। महात्मा गांधी जी उस समय तक मोहनदास करमचंद गांधी थे, लेकिन जब चंपारण में अंग्रेजों द्वारा नील की खेती की जा रही थी, उनका जो अत्याचार हो रहा था, तो साउथ अफ्रीका से लौटने के बाद 1916 में वो चंपारण में आए और अंग्रेजों के जो ये नील की खेती के विरुद्ध उन्होंने चंपारण सत्याग्रह का आगाज किया, जिसके चलते वो महात्मा गांधी बन गए। आज चंपारण के किसानों की जो स्थिति है वह बहुत ही बदतर है। पिछले 15 साल से हमारे यहाँ जेडीयू की सरकार है, नीतीश कुमार जी मुख्यमंत्री हैं, लेकिन किसानों की समस्या पर किसी भी सरकार का कोई अब तक उस का आय हम बढ़ा सकें, उनके भविष्य के बारे में कुछ हम उपाय कर सकें, जिसका नतीजा ये होता है कि जब भी कुछ होता है तो किसान यहाँ आत्महत्या करने पर मजबूर हो जा रहे हैं। उसका कारण है, अभी आपने बताया कि बांग्लादेश में एक ट्रैक्टर की कीमत अगर 6 लाख रुपए है तो 50% सब्सिडी गवर्नमेंट देती है, लेकिन हमारे यहाँ एक ट्रैक्टर की कीमत करीब 8 लाख रुपए है, उसमें 1% भी गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से सब्सिडी नहीं होता है। और चूंकि जो हमारी यहाँ खेती है वो कोई टेक्निकली नहीं है। आज भी हम लोग सिंचाई के लिए मानसून पे ही आधारित होते हैं। अगर अच्छा मानसून रहा तो खेती हमारी अच्छी हुई, अच्छा मानसून नहीं रहा तो खेती हमारा जुआ है वो उसके साथ लॉस होना है। वैसी स्थिति में जब किसान बैंक से लोन लेते हैं, वो लोन नहीं चुका पाते हैं, तो मजबूरी में जब बैंक उन पर प्रेशर डालता है,
म्यूट हो गया है प्रोफेसर। प्रोफेसर नंदेश जी म्यूट हो गया है।
माइक म्यूट हो गया है प्रोफेसर साहब।
जी, जी,
ओ,
बोलिए, बोलिए। जी, जी, जी।
असल में भाई आज चूंकि बिहार में हमारे यहाँ ये असेंबली इलेक्शन भी हो रहा है, तो उसमें 15 मिनट का किसले भाई ने समय दिया था। फिर उसके बाद थोड़े देर में हम लोग को एक प्रचार प्रसार में भी निकलना है, इसलिए थोड़ा समय कम दे पाएंगे। अभी जो हमारे यहाँ चंपारण की स्थिति है उसमें मैं अन्नदाता के रूप में बता रहा हूँ। जो ये नरेंद्र मोदी जी किसानों को बोलते हैं कि अन्नदाता है, लेकिन ये ही अपने आप में एक विवादित बयान है कि हम अन्नदाता होते हुए भी अगर पूरे हिंदुस्तान में अगर सबसे खराब स्थिति है तो वो किसानों की है। अब हमारे यहाँ जो पश्चिम चंपारण है इसमें अक्टूबर महीने से धान की कटाई शुरू हो जाती है और उस चूंकि खेत कम है लोगों के पास, तो धान की कटाई जब शुरू हो जाएगी उसके बाद फिर वो जब खेत खाली होगा फिर उसमें लोग गन्ना का उत्पादन करेंगे या फिर गेहूं बोएंगे, सरसों की खेती करेंगे। इस तरह से यहाँ रोटेशन फसल चक्र चलता है। अभी हमारे यहाँ धान की कटाई शुरू हो गई है, लेकिन सरकार की तरफ से उस धान की खरीदारी मार्च के अंत में होगा। और इस बीच में चूंकि किसान यहाँ के गरीब किसान है, उनकी आर्थिक स्थिति बहुत अच्छी नहीं होती है, तो उनको खेती करने के लिए पैसे की आवश्यकता पड़ती है। बैंक समय से उनको कर्ज नहीं देता है, तो इस बीच में उनको अपने धान को औने पौने दाम पर यानी कि 1,000-1,200 रुपए प्रति क्विंटल के हिसाब से मार्केट में बेच देना पड़ता है, जबकि गवर्नमेंट का समर्थन मूल्य यहाँ तय करती है वो 1,850 रुपए का है। और सबसे बड़ी विडंबना है कि वो 1,850 रुपए का किसी भी किसान को वो रेट नहीं मिल पाता है जिससे कि वो अपना वो उचित मूल्य पर बेचे। और चूंकि पहले उनके हमारे यहाँ खेत में से धान कटेगा, उसके बाद हम अपना सुखाएंगे, ले आएंगे घर, फिर उसके बाद जो एफसीआई का गोदाम है वहां ले जाएंगे या पैक्स में ले जाएंगे, तब खरीदारी होगी। ये करते करते 3-4 महीने का समय बीत जाता है। किसानों की स्थिति इतनी खराब है कि वो मजबूरी में उनको बेचना पड़ता है कि चूंकि अगली खेती उनको करनी होती है। अब फिर ये धान कटा तो फिर हम गन्ने की खेती करेंगे। पूरा बिहार इंडस्ट्री के नाम पर कुछ नहीं है। अभी सिर्फ यहाँ शुगर इंडस्ट्री चल रहा है पूरे बिहार में, जो किसानों से संबंधित है, गन्ने का उत्पादन करते हैं जिससे चीनी हम बनाते हैं। 8 8 शुगर फैक्ट्री हमारे बिहार में अभी चालू है, जिसमें सिर्फ पश्चिम चंपारण जहां से हम लोग बिलोंग करते हैं 6 शुगर फैक्ट्रियां हैं। अब ये सोचा जाए कि पूरे बिहार में 8 शुगर फैक्ट्री है और जिसमें सिर्फ पश्चिम चंपारण में 6 शुगर फैक्ट्री है। पिछले 4 वर्षों से गन्ने के रेट में हमारे माननीय मुख्यमंत्री ने 50 नए पैसे का इजाफा नहीं किया, जबकि प्रतिदिन डीजल का मूल्य बढ़ता है जिससे हमारी खेती होती है, सिंचाई होता है। प्रति प्रति माह या कहा जाए या प्रति 6 महीने पे फर्टिलाइजर की कीमत बढ़ता है। लगभग अभी तक पिछले 4 साल में जो फर्टिलाइजर का कीमत था वो लगभग दुगना हो चुका है। ये लेबर मूल्य है उसकी बढ़ोतरी हो रही है। सारे इसके जितने कंपोनेंट्स है उसमें वृद्धि रोज हो रही है, लेकिन किसानों के जो फसल है उसमें 1 पैसे का वृद्धि नहीं होता है। अब ये समझ में नहीं आता, ये सरकारें बोलती हैं कि मैं किसानों की आय को दूना करूंगा, किसानों को ये मुआवजा दूंगा, ये उनके अच्छाई के लिए काम करूंगा। आप हमें ये बताएं कि कौन सा वो तरीका है जिससे किसानों का आय दुगना हो जाएगा। कोई आपके पास पॉलिसी नहीं है, किसानों को कोई मुआवजा आप नहीं देते हैं। पिछली बार 2007 में हमारी यूपीए की गवर्नमेंट थी, तो राहुल गांधी जी ने देखा कि किसानों के ऊपर बहुत सारा कर्ज बढ़ गया, जिससे ये कर्ज के बोझ से दबे हुए हैं। बहुत सारे किसानों के आत्महत्या करने की शिकायत मिली। उस समय उन्होंने मनमोहन सिंह जो प्रधानमंत्री थे उनसे कहकर 79,000 करोड़ 79,000 करोड़ उन्होंने किसानों का ऋण माफ किया था, जिससे किसानों को काफी राहत मिला और फिर वो अपना खेती सुचारू रूप से करने लगे। 2014 में नरेंद्र मोदी जी की सरकार आई, किसानों की समस्या तो जस की तस बनी हुई है। एक सुई का फैक्ट्री देश में लगता है, एक सुई का इंडस्ट्री लगता है, तो उसका मालिक वो रेट तय करता है कि हम सुई कितने में बेचेंगे। लेकिन एक किसान जो देश का अन्नदाता है, फसल उपजाता है, देश को किसान अन्न के मामले में आत्मनिर्भर बनाता है, लेकिन उसको अपने अन्न का कीमत तय करने का अधिकार नहीं। तो ऐसे में गवर्नमेंट एमएसपी तय करती है। गवर्नमेंट एमएसपी तय करती है तो ये ही नहीं देखती है कि भाई उसका किस आधार पर हम एमएसपी तय करते हैं। 2006 में स्वामीनाथन कमेटी बनी थी, उस कमेटी की भी अनुशंसा को गवर्नमेंट, जो बीजेपी गवर्नमेंट है, मोदी जी की गवर्नमेंट नहीं मान रही है। आज किसानों की स्थिति बद से बदतर हो जा रही है। हम लोग कोई एक जो भी अन्न है उसकी खरीदारी का कोई स्थान नहीं है जहां पे हमारे किसान जाके अपने अन्न को बेच सके, उनका उचित मूल्य प्राप्त हो सके। गन्ना का मुख्य फसल हमारे यहाँ गन्ना है, उसका पिछले 4 वर्षों में 1 पैसे की बढ़ोतरी नहीं। रोज फर्टिलाइजर का दाम बढ़ रहा है, डीजल का दाम बढ़ रहा है, किसानों की स्थिति बद से बदतर हो जा रही है, समय पे उनका पेमेंट नहीं मिलता है। हमारे यहाँ फैक्ट्री चलता है, नवंबर से शुगर फैक्ट्रियां शुरू हो जाएंगी, लेकिन गन्ना गिराने का शुगर एक्ट में ये नियम है, प्रावधान है कि अगर हम गन्ना आज देते हैं तो 14 दिन तक अगर पेमेंट नहीं मिलता है तो 15 डेज के बाद विथ इंटरेस्ट उसको पेमेंट करना है। लेकिन यहाँ के फैक्ट्री मालिक हैं वो 6-6 महीना के, 1-1 साल के बाद गन्ना मूल्य का भुगतान करते हैं। किसान समझ नहीं पाते हैं कि वो अपने बच्चों को कैसे पढ़ाएं, अपने स्वास्थ्य पर कैसे ध्यान दें, अपने घर में अगर शादी विवाह है तो उसका खर्च कैसे उठाएं। ये इस पर कहीं हमारे केंद्र सरकार या राज्य सरकार का इस पर कुछ ध्यान नहीं है, जिससे हमारे यहाँ की फसल मान किसान की स्थिति बद से बदतर हो जा रही है। तो आज तो इंडियन ओवरसीज कांग्रेस के माध्यम से मैं देश विदेश और आप लोग जो जुड़े हुए हैं तो सबसे मैं आग्रह करूंगा और धन्यवाद भी देना चाहूंगा कि जो आप लोगों ने मुझे इस पर आने का मौका दिया, जो यहाँ के किसानों की समस्या पर हमने प्रकाश डालने का जो हमें मौका मिला चंपारण से। ऐसे ही आप लोग कार्यक्रम कराते रहे जिससे हमारे किसान को भी मनोबल हम लोग का भी बढ़ेगा और ये हमारी बातें सरकार तक पहुंचेंगी, जिससे हो सकता है कि आने वाले समय में किसानों की स्थिति में कुछ सुधार हो।
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया।
धन्यवाद तुफैल भाई, आज चूंकि हम लोग को अभी थोड़े प्रचार में भी निकलना है, इसलिए समय बहुत जी जी धन्यवाद।
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, आपने हमें ज्वाइन किया, आपने कीमती वक्त दिया, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया।
थैंक यू भाई।
जी ठीक
है, किस लिए
जी
धन्यवाद
जी।
Now moving to the next.
तुफैल भाई डिस्कनेक्ट देख लीजिए हो गए या नहीं प्रोफेसर साहब।
Okay, now he's gone.
Yeah.
Now Dr. Beg is back.
Yes.
So
Dr. Beg came when Professor Saab left, so it was a very insightful talk by Professor Saab. उन्होंने बहुत ही जमीनी स्तर की बातें उठाई है उन्होंने।
नहीं, ये जरूरी है कि ग्राउंड लेवल पे बात को समझा जाए, क्या प्रॉब्लम है। हम लोग कोरिया में रहते हैं, थोड़ा सा फार्मिंग बैकग्राउंड है, लेकिन वो जो ग्राउंड पे वो स्ट्रगल कर रहा है वो ज्यादा बेहतर बताएगा। So it was very important to invite him, and we are glad that he delivered a very good lecture on that one.
जी।
So, okay, moving next. So now I would like to invite Mr. Kisle Kumar to give a small his opinion on the newly implemented black farm laws and how it will have impact on Indian farmers. And also I would like to ask him to cover an aspect that what we as an responsible citizens can do to make sure that our farmers are happy and prosperous in the future.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद तुफैल अहमद साहब मुझे इनवाइट करने के लिए, और बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपका कि आपने IOCK की तरफ से इस इनिशिएटिव को लिया गया। आज किसान अधिकार दिवस जो कांग्रेस ऑब्जर्व कर रहा है उस पे हम लोग एक प्रोग्राम करें, एंड इट इज़ आवर प्लेजर that through IOCK, Indian Overseas Congress South Korea, which is under the formation phase, we are raising voice for our farmers who are suffering in India today. While we do this program, I am not at all happy that we have to do this program, because the situation in which India has come today is very grave and very serious. So मैं इस बात को कहना चाहूँगा कि जब हिंदुस्तान का इतिहास आज से 50 या 60 साल बाद एक बार फिर से लिखा जा रहा होगा, तो उस वक्त इतिहासकार कांग्रेस के बारे में ये लिखेंगे कि कांग्रेस वो पार्टी है जिसने 1955 में एक ऐसा कानून लाया था which was against hoarding of food grains, essential commodities. Congress is a party which brought green revolution to India. Congress is the party which waived farmers' loans. Congress is the party which gave the right to food protection, food security bill during the Manmohan Singh's time. Congress is the party which gave Indians the right to buy rice at 3 rupees per kg and wheat at 2 rupees per kg. This is the Congress party, and this is the DNA of Congress party, that they have always thought in favor of the poor and the farmers. और बीजेपी के बारे में जब इतिहासकार लिख रहे होंगे तो वो लिखेंगे कि ये काले जो काला बाजारी थी जो 1955 में नेहरू के गवर्नमेंट में बंद की गई by illegalizing hoarding of food grains was legalized by Modi government in 2020 by passing an ordinance and then an amendment bill where Mr. Modi has legalized hoardings. So you can imagine, I don't understand what is the meaning, what is the purpose of legalizing hoarding. And they say that farmers can also hoard now. But can you imagine the small farmers who have, as you mentioned in your presentation, Dr. Tufail, that our Indian farmers, majority of them, they have less than 1.1 hectare of land. So it's a very small land. So those farmers with this small land and with these limited resources, do you think that they can hoard food grains? I mean, this is a kind of joke that Mr. Modi and his government is doing. So the idea over here is by legalizing these hoarding rules and by taking these essential commodities out of the Essential Commodity Act, is to give a free hand to the corporates to hoard food grains, and then by limiting the supply, increase the price. तो ये अब हम लोग चूंकि ट्रेड के स्टूडेंट हैं, I'm a student of trade. I've done my masters in international trade from one of the renowned universities of South Korea, and I've been taught by great professors who were advisors to presidents. I know how these things work. We understand that how these things work. When you limit the supply, the price goes high, and when the price goes high, the common people, the poor people have to suffer. And not only the poor people, but also the farmers would have to suffer. So this is a dual blow, a double blow to the farmers. Number one, when you purchase their products at say 100 rupees, and then you hoard it, and then you increase the price to 200 rupees, at first place, you are not giving proper price to the farmers. And number two, by hoarding and increasing the price, you are again giving a blow to the farmer, because the farmer will have to go and buy, say if they are producing oil seeds, then they have to purchase oil at a higher cost from those corporates. तो ये एक डबल ब्लो दिया है मोदी सरकार ने. और I would like to briefly, first of all, in order to criticize a law, in order to understand, in order to talk up against some laws or bills, we have to understand what it is all about. So basically, briefly, I would like to put all those three laws in your views very briefly. First is called Essential Commodity Amendment Bill. In this amendment bill, the government has put out cereals, pulses, oil seeds, edible oil, onions, and potatoes from the list of essential commodity. Means by throwing out these items from the list of essential commodities, Modi government is saying that no, these are not the essential commodities. These can be hoarded by corporates. These can be hoarded by big hoarders and black marketeers, and there is no such law that these things have to be protected. And Mr. Modi's government do not count these items in essential commodities as of today. So if they have already ousted cereal, pulses, oil seeds, edible oil, onion, potato, so what is left? Only vegetables. And vegetables cannot be hoarded. Everyone knows that. So Mr. Modi has, in a way, legalized hoarding of all the agricultural products. And everyone present over here, अगर आप दिल पे हाथ रख के अपने से ये सवाल पूछें कि क्या होर्डिंग अलाउड होनी चाहिए मार्केट में, आपके अंदर से आवाज आएगी नहीं, ये बहुत है, काला बाजारी को खुली छूट है. उसके बाद जो दूसरा बिल मोदी सरकार ने पास किया है अभी, वो है एम्पावरमेंट एंड प्रोटेक्शन एग्रीमेंट ऑन प्राइस एंड फार्म सर्विस बिल, जिसको कि बेसिकली हम लोग अपने आम भाषा में कॉन्ट्रैक्ट फार्मिंग बोलते हैं. वी कॉल इट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट फार्मिंग. So all these three bills I will talk about. The third bill is where they have illegalized, in a way they have illegalized mandis, the APMCs, the Agriculture Produce Market Committees. The third bill is Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Bill, कृषि उत्पादन व्यापार एवं वाणिज्य. इसमें इन्होंने मंडियों को खत्म करने का काम किया है. तो खैर अभी दूसरे बिल के बारे में हम बात करते हैं. ये आपस में all these three bills are very much connected to each other. The second bill is this contract farming bill, where they have allowed corporates to enter into the agriculture market. Mr. Modi is a free marketeer. We know through his works in Gujarat and all other places in India. यहाँ पे भी उन्होंने free market mechanism को he has tried to introduce it into the agriculture business, where the farmers are not ready. Our farmers are small. Our farmers are resourceless. As Mr. Pandey has very well pointed out in his speech today, that the farmers, they are dependent on rainwater. We do not have agriculture के लिए we do not have organized irrigation facilities even today in India. So giving it to corporates, introducing the presence of corporates in agriculture sector is a very dangerous precedent that Mr. Modi is setting. As Mr. Pandey, our chief speaker today, who came here for a very short time, he has already mentioned that how these sugar mills, they cheat the farmers. उन्होंने बताया कि शुगर मिल्स में अगर फार्मर अपना गन्ना बेचता है तो 14 दिन के बाद 15वें दिन से इंटरेस्ट का प्रावधान है. There is a provision of giving interest if the mills do not pay the farmers, then from 15th day of non-payment they have to count interest and then they have to pay the farmers with interest. But the payment is made after 6 months or 1 year. I am also son of a farmer and I know how my father has suffered. So this is a story of every household here in Champaran. I am from Champaran. I am from the Gandhi's land, and I know how farmers are suffering over here. Gandhi's land has been exploited in such a bad manner by this present government that no other government has ever done this with the land of Gandhi's action. चंपारण के साथ जो आज इन्होंने धोखा किया है, और जदयू बीजेपी की सरकार कहती है कि हम लोग देशभक्त सरकार हैं, ये हैं और वो हैं, जिस तरीके से चंपारण को इन लोगों ने ठगा है. किसान जब गन्ना किसान मार्केट में जाता है, अपना गन्ना बेचता है, तो सबसे पहले तो 10 दिन तक उनका गन्ना वहां से उठाया नहीं जाता है. जब उनका गन्ना सूख जाता है, जब उसका वेट कम हो जाता है, तो कम वेट पे उनका गन्ना उठाया जाता है. उसके बाद उनको पेमेंट के लिए 6-6 महीने तक दौड़ाया जाता है. अब आपको एक और चीज मैं बताता हूँ. यहाँ पे एक रिसीप्ट सिस्टम है, पुर्जी सिस्टम है यहाँ पे. अगर आपने 10,000 या 1 लाख का गन्ना बेचा तो 1 लाख का आपको रिसिप्ट मिलेगा. And that receipt is later on sold by the farmers in the market to others because they need money. So if they need money to, after say 3 months or 2 months and the payment has not been made, they sell their receipt at a lower cost. So if the receipt is of 1 lakh rupees, they sell it for 50,000 rupees in the market and they go in a loss of 50,000 rupees because they need money. This is the condition of Indian farmers today. And this is the condition of Indian farmers in BJP JDU government, which says that they are going to increase the farmers, farmers' income. And as Mr. Pandey has mentioned very clearly, that there is no policy, the government does not have any policy through which they can say that they are going to increase the income of the farmer in such a manner. He has also raised one very important issue. He has said that the sugarcane price has not been increased in last few years, in last 6 or 7 years, while the inflation is around, inflation is all-time high. तो यहाँ पे एक और चीज देखने लायक है कि आप when you are not increasing the farmers the price of the farmers produce, you are in a way pushing them into more unequal society where farmers income is going low and at the same time the inflation and the income of other people are going high. Go and talk to an engineer who is working in a private sector. He's earning 50,000 rupees today, but farmer who works 24/7 on his land earns 20,000 rupees for say 30,000 rupees for a bigha of land where he produces rice in Bihar today. So this is the reality. Now, at this particular point of time, you are bringing contract farming. There are very important points which has to be raised when we talk about contract farming, and which has to be raised when we become very happy about contract farming, that, hey, the price would already be fixed by the corporates. If the price of the wheat in the market is 20 rupees, corporates will give you 22 rupees and they will already fix the price and they will purchase it. No, it's not going to be as green as you think. It has some very important issues which you have to take into consideration. Number one is, what if the payments are delayed? Like as you have seen, the payments are delayed in Bihar when we see about the sugar mills in Bihar. They delay the payment. If the corporates, after signing a contract, if they delay the payment of the farmer for 6 months, has the government brought any law? The government which says that they are the saviors of the farmers and they care about the farmers, have they brought any law where they have prohibited or they have said anything against delayed payments by the corporates in contract farming? No, they haven't, because they know everything. It's not that the government doesn't know it or it has been done by mistake. They know everything, but they are giving loopholes. And this is what they say as, favorable condition for the market. This is what they say कि बहुत ही favorable condition है corporates के लिए. And this is what they call it as ease of doing business. To hell with this ease of doing business. If the farmers are not provided proper protection, to hell with this ease of doing business. And we do not consider Congress party and we, the members of the Indian Overseas Congress, South Korea, we do not consider this ease of doing business any good for the nation. Second thing, what if the company goes bankrupt? Has the government brought any bill? Has the government brought any provision if the company goes bankrupt and denies payment to the farmers? Is the government going to support those farmers? Because they have already put them in the framework of the free market. Free market has an invisible hand, so-called invisible hand. Mr. Modi, being a free marketeer, must be very happy about it, that if the corporates take all those produce in 5 years and then they go bankrupt, then they have to pay nothing. And then the government will, they will take some loan from the government and the government will finally write off their loans. Farmers will be left completely, destroyed and destructed. Government does not have any provision for this one. Other thing, all these issues, all these loopholes are not made punishable offense. Means any corporate personals, their owners, their managers will not be punished if they do anything against these farmers. The other thing is that, what if company says that, hey, I signed the contract, but now I don't have the requirement. I'm not going to purchase your produce. What is the government going to do after that? They will, corporate has a crying tendency. They will cry and they will say that we cannot produce because our market is lost. Our buyer has signed off the contract with us, so we cannot buy. We cannot buy from you. What are you going to do after that? One more point is very important. Corporate means profit maximization. If the corporate says that if I am going to sign a contract with you for 5 years, you have to use this fertilizer for 5 years. And what if the land becomes barren and non-productive, as Mr. Tufail mentioned in his opening speech? If the land becomes unproductive after the use of a particular fertilizer, the government is not going to see anything. They are not going to do anything. The corporate will shift to another piece of land. They will shift to another village for exploiting the farmers over here. And these farmers who had the contract with these corporates will be left destroyed. तो गवर्नमेंट के पास कोई ऐसा प्रावधान नहीं है कि अगर उनकी जमीन का जो उपजाऊ शक्ति है, उसकी उर्वरा शक्ति जो है, वो अगर कम हो जाती है उनके जमीन की, तो उस समय गवर्नमेंट इनको किसी भी तरीके के फार्मर्स को सब्सिडी दे या उनकी मदद करे. गवर्नमेंट हैज गॉट नो प्रोविजन फॉर दिस. द अदर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इशू अबाउट दिस इज अबाउट द शेयर क्रॉपर्स. जो बटाईदार किसान होते हैं, जो छोटे किसान होते हैं, जिनके पास अपनी जमीन नहीं होती है, वो क्या करेंगे? अगर कॉर्पोरेट अपने लोगों को लेके आती है, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट साइन करती है और बोलती है कि हमारे लोग ही खेती करेंगे तुम्हारी जमीन पे, तो वो बटाईदार, वो शेयर क्रॉपर्स जो है, वेयर विल दोस शेयर क्रॉपर्स गो? So these are some very important issues for the farmers and for the common people to think when we pat the back of the government for bringing in these laws. Now the other one जिसके बारे में सबसे ज़्यादा हंगामा हो रहा है, that is the bill where they have where they are trying to crush, where they are trying to delegitimize the APMCs, मंडी को जो इन लोग बंद करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. वहां पे क्या है कि यहाँ पे देखिए, बहुत जरूरी चीज ये है कि we have to understand that the farmers in India are very small. So a farmer who produces a truck of say onion cannot sell it by their own. There is no MSP on onion. Government doesn't buy the onion, so the farmers have to go into the market for selling. So these mandis where they go and sell, they directly get a buyer over there. But if the mandis are not in, they are no more, their existence is over, they are not existing. So where will these farmers go and sell their products? So this is a very common thing that the government should have thought of, but they are not thinking. They are just saying that हमने बिचौलिया को हटा दिया. लेकिन बिचौलिया क्या करता था? बिचौलिया अगर आपसे 2.5% या 3% लेता था, तो बिचौलिया used to provide you space for storage, cold storage बना के रखा हुआ था. उन्होंने, they had already, other buyers where they used to sell your products by buying in bulk. So 100 farmers go to a bichaulia and the bichaulia sells it to other buyers. So the farmers were at ease. Now you are saying you are patting your back and you are saying that we have destroyed the business of the middlemen, but you have actually not destroyed the business of the middlemen, you have destroyed the business of the whole farmers. So these bills which the government has brought, there is also one more angle to see these bills. I, being a trade student, I know that WTO, the World Trade Organization, is completely against the MSP. They say that MSP is a trade distortive, is a market distortive rule. And government of India, the government of China, the government of Indonesia, these developing countries who provide MSP to their farmers should get rid of MSPs. The government of India, being pro-free market and being under the pressure of the international organizations and these neoliberal organizations, they are trying to, am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Okay. So they are in a way trying to follow the instructions of their global masters, and they are in a way they have been pressurized by WTO and what WTO says. Their so-called motivation of free market and fair practices of trade. So it's a shame for us that the government is not standing for the farmers, but they are standing for some other forces. If you see the history of the Congress government till date has been very successfully able to protect its agricultural business. So, our policies, our agricultural policies have always been protectionist, and we must feel very proud about it that Congress government had these protectionist policies for protecting our farmers. But the BJP government seem to be completely devoid of any empathy for the farmers, and I don't know where they are moving. So this is what I wanted to say today. Thank you very much for listening to me very patiently. Now I would like to hand over the screen to Mr. Tufail.
Yeah,
thank you.
It was very insightful, Mr. Kisle, for giving us those information about those three aspects of the newly implemented farm bill. We do agree with the fact that there are so many flaws with those policies, and unfortunately it will be the Indian farmers and India at large will be suffering from these policies. Hope the government takes some measures and make some changes with those policies. So now coming to the next part of this program. So now we will try to understand how BJP is hijacking the Patel's legacy and others legacy from who has done extremely well in the Congress party. Would you like to say something, Mr. Kisle, on that one?
Well, I agree to your point that BJP is totally hell-bent to hijack the legacy of our great freedom fighters, our great men and women who have done a lot to unite India, who have done a lot to fight the Britishers, who have done a lot to ensure that India, being a highly plural and democratic society, maintains its secular, democratic and plural fabrics. But when you see ideologically, when you see the ideological wing of BJP, it's RSS. So what they have done so far for the independence of India is not hidden to anyone. It's their involvement in the freedom struggle was almost nil. When the whole India was fighting against Britishers, they had some vague idea of fighting against some particular community. So this party has come from that ideological background, and it is very important for us to acknowledge it. It is very important for us to remember when we analyze the politics of BJP. When we analyze the politics of BJP, it is also this farm bill. This farm bill is a total ideological reflection of what BJP is doing, what BJP is. What they are. They have never cared about the their ideologically. They have never cared about the underprivileged sections of the society. They have always tried to maintain hegemony of particular 4 or 5 groups of people. So whenever I analyze their policy, I go into historical background. I see that they had no one who could do something for the independence of India, for giving something to India. So what they are doing, what they can do ultimately is to hijack some personalities. Sometimes they say that Bhagat Singh, they call Bhagat Singh as their own, but they would be amazed to know this fact that Bhagat Singh was not one of their own. He was a communist. They say Patel as their own, and they build a statue of Patel, but Patel is the one who banned RSS at one point. particular point of time by saying that these group of people, they are very dangerous for India. He was a true congressman, and until his death, he was an ardent congressman, and no one can deny this fact. So you are right in saying that the legacy is being hijacked, and we, the educated people, we have to stand to this wherever we get a democratic space, be it in India or outside of India. We will always keep exposing them. We will always keep, talking against them. Over to you, sir.
The very fact of the matter is that BJP is in so much praising for Patel, and yes, praise Mr. Patel rightly deserved the praise. He has done extremely well for the India. He has played a very significant role in uniting the India. But they forget the fact after first they tried to create a sense of difference between the Nehru's opinion and Mr. Patel. For example, whenever there is a democracy, of course there is a difference in the opinion, and you have to agree to disagree on certain points. When Mr. Nehru was on an overseas visit, Patel was not only home minister, but he was also many times acting prime minister. He was for the very first time appointed as so. So when Mahatma Gandhi was killed by some extreme Hindutva groups, and when he was killed, there was a pressure on Mr. Patel that he must resign because he was a home minister, and home ministry couldn't provide him the safety and security of Mahatma Gandhi. And Mr. Patel became too emotional, as he was very rooted to the ground, very down-to-earth person. And he decided that, okay, if I couldn't save the life of the Mahatma Gandhi, then what is the point of me becoming the home minister? And he wrote a letter to Pandit Nehru, and he actually sent a resignation letter. But it was the love, affection, the brotherhood between the Pandit Nehru and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, that the Pandit Nehru refused to accept that resignation letter. And there has been, and after the death of, after the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi, Sardar Vallabhbhai not only banned RSS, but he also banned the Hindu Mahasabha. And he was very clear in his opinion. He not only called that these organizations like the RSS and the Hindu Mahasabha is threat to India, but in his the Ministry of Home Ministry notification, he clearly mentioned these are the terrorist organizations. These are the words of the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. And later, so many BJP are trying, and I'm sure they will accept not only Patel but many other leaders, because the historian Ramachandra Guha has said 5 years back that the BJP is a party which is mostly anti-intellectual party. You can't see the intellectuals in those parties, who will dare to speak against Mr. Narendra Modi? Even if you have a genuine concern, they won't dare to speak. Speaking against Mr. Modi is just getting kicked out from the party. So democracy, certainly not only the intellectual aspects, but also BJP need to have more intellectuals. If you don't have the intellectual, then you bring the black laws like this Farm 3 laws, which is not going to help anyone, not it's going to help the agriculture sector, neither to the farmers. And at the end, everyone would be paying the price for it. Yeah, thank you. So thank you so much, Mr. Kisle, on giving your opinion on that one. And now we would like to ask, we can have 10 minutes open question and answer session, and we can discuss on any subject, and then we'll come to the vote of thanks. All the participants, Mr. Basaraj Sankin, Mr. Chandan, Mr. Manikant Kumar, Suha, and yeah.
When they passed this anti-farmer bill, if you notice, I would say there is a large amount of the protest across the India, but if you look at very closely, much of the protest happened in the northern states like the Punjab, Haryana, and those kind of things. And to be honest, we did not get as much as the support from the southern India. So do you see this contrast difference? If so, what do you think? And also, interestingly, if you speak about the South India, there is no BJP except in Karnataka. We would have got as much as the support. So is this exposes the all the local parties? Simply they say they belongs to secular India and they internally support to the BJP. whoever like KCR, Jagan Mohan Reddy, like Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and from other states, So what do you guys think about this?
Who did you ask this question, please?
No, it's a generic, like anybody can have a view on this.
Okay. Mr. Tufail, would you like to answer this question?
Well, in my opinion, the agriculture sector is dominated by the northern part of India, whether it's Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, and UP, and they almost contribute to 75% to 80% of the India's grains. And second thing, if you see about the South India, the very fact of the matter is even the farmers are educated. And I was reading recently an article that in South India, where this they have moved from traditional agriculture to the organic agriculture, and they are more into the smart farming. They have started in Andhra, in Tamil Nadu, and what they are doing, they are growing two types of crops. One for the daily cash, which could be the corianders, green leaves, and so on. Then second one is they are producing some vegetables only for the export purpose. And most of the smart farming comes under the organic products, and they are just directly exporting. And they have made a group of 200 farmers in Andhra Pradesh. There is one group, and they are producing. And because first they have a bigger size of land. Second, when you produce in bulk, it's very easy to export your products because they need in the huge containers. So I think the North Indian farmers would be more affected with these policies than in South, because they are not too much dependent on these, because they have big lands, smart farming, technology, digital education. So they are actually a bit safer than what the North Indian farmers are exposed to.
Yeah,
Yes, Mr. Kisle.
like I got it, what exactly you are trying to say. But however, like even if it's a small person, like it is not going to affect much of the, like the rich guys, like who will hold a large amount of the lands and do the farmings and contracting basis and all those kind of things. It should not be any problem to them. But like there is a large amount of the agriculture families also in the southern India also. But I am really quite surprised, even though there is no BJP presence there from the South India. Like I don't see like the very very hardcore project, like protest what we are seeing from the northern India.
Oh, there is also
And
possibility
also,
that
like, is there any? I think these bills are passed right already in Rajya Sabha, and also
right.
presidents also.
Yes. The bills were very shamelessly passed in Rajya Sabha. Actually, not only passed, but very shamelessly passed without the consent of the political parties. They could not have secured the majority in passing the bills in Rajya Sabha. But as you know that Congress protested very fiercely against it.
Yeah.
And I also agree, Basuraj, to your point that some of the local parties, the regional parties in South India, they are somehow playing in the hands of BJP, like you mentioned in Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, etc. So I totally agree to your point that yes, they are somehow supporting BJP, and thus they have not let these protests grow. Otherwise, this could have been a nationwide protest. But as Mr. Tufail also said, I would like to acknowledge it that yes, most of the Punjab being the leader in the agriculture, it's very imperative for them to protest. So I agree to both of your points. It's very
And
true
like
to mention.
and also we must appreciate the Punjab Congress, like in the last session they have introduced so many bills, that could be a very that can be a very challenge to the central policies. Like they have modified some rules and some laws that will really help for the farmers, and in the same way that will counter the central policy also. Like in this sense, I think Amrinder Singh, he's doing a
Yes.
very, very great job with, like at least from the farmer's point of view. Yeah.
Exactly. I agree. Yes,
Well,
Mr.
thank you
Tufail.
guys.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah. And anyone would like to participate with any questions, discussion? Okay, perfect. So on the behalf of the Indian Overseas Congress Seoul chapter, we are thankful to all the participants And I hope we will be engaged in this kind of discussions where we can put the intellectuals' inputs, and we'll be discussing on different topics which is related with any part of the India, and not only related to this one, but we are also open to have, if you have any idea which you think that deserve attention, we will surely work on it. Even if we have to work on the ground level, we will work. We are the young people, we have a broad minding, and we are educationally qualified, so we will at the same time we are also in the learning position, so we will learn and try to have those ideas how it can be implemented. We should be working on the ground level, and I appreciate everyone joining us. Thank you so much, and let's meet you next time, you all guys. Mr. Kisle, do you have to say final words?
Yeah, before you give vote of thanks, Mr. Tufail, I just want to say a few words to my viewers, to our viewers. As you know that we have already announced the formation of Indian Overseas Congress South Korea on October 2nd on the Gandhi Jayanti, and it was done by our honorable AICC secretary in charge, Mr. Himanshu Vyas. So in that regard, we are, as you know, that we are in the formation phase. This video will go on social media as well. So through this platform, I would like to invite and encourage all our stakeholders to come and participate. Stakeholders means you all are stakeholders when we think of India as a nation, right? So we all are stakeholders of India. So if you agree, if you subscribe to the ideology of Congress, and if you think that something has to be done against Mr. Modi's policies, which are anti-poor, anti-farmer, anti-middle class policies, please join us. We are a group of intellectuals. We have a group of very good scientists, people related to business, international relations, economists, and also we are trying to build a very good team over here in Indian Overseas Congress South Korea and ultimately contribute something towards India. So please join us. We are also going to form a business unit which will be looking at the business between India and Korea, all the investments and everything. So we are trying to form something of a sort of economic body over there in Korea, which will be looking after India-Korea business. We are also, trying to build a knowledge capital unit where we'll be producing ideas related to artificial intelligence, because the Korean government invests a lot on research and development in the field of AI, in the field of climate change, etc. So we are trying to pull in intellectuals from all of these fields, and we are trying to build a knowledge capital unit where we will be producing ideas. Gradually, we are also planning to make it big. We'll be releasing some papers, etc., from this unit. So we are trying to build a very interactive, a very interesting, and a very promising, ambitious group over here in South Korea. I invite every one of you to please join. You don't have to do anything. Just call me, give me a message on WhatsApp, Messenger. We are all active on Facebook. You can contact us on Twitter. IOCS Korea is our handle everywhere on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please feel free to contact us. We are all down to earth people. You don't have to think anything. Just text us and we'll let you know each and everything about Indian Overseas Congress South Korea. So with these, I would like to end my words. Over to you, Mr. Tufail, for the vote of thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much everyone for participating, and let's hope that we continue this kind of events, seminars, webinars, meetings, so we can contribute in the development of our country, India. So once again, thank you so much and have a wonderful weekend to everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you and take care.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.